Okay. Yep. We are
Cool.
live. This is Craig LeBlanc, the doorman, founder of LTP TV, which highlights people with a low time preference creators. I met Jordan on another show that I worked with. He is the co-founder of Sovereignty Studios in El Salvador and is doing some great work in El Salvador, obviously with the Bitcoin community. So, welcome to the show, Jordan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's a beautiful sunny day here. We're in a brand new neighborhood in El Salvador. So until this last weekend, which has been a 5-day holiday in El Salvador, there's nothing but construction workers outside. So this is our last day of peace, and I've been
Not
really
like a
enjoying it.
national holiday. It's just like a holiday y'all are taking.
No, it's a national holiday. It's like
Ah,
5 days long. I forget what it's called. It's a Catholic holiday, which oddly enough, my Argentine wife has never heard of, and they're probably more Catholic down there. But
now, I just sent you the link for the live broadcast through our DMs. And let me go ahead
on
and,
Twitter,
yeah, that way you can pin it to your profile. It'll get more traction that way for your audience. And then I'm pinning it to mine right now.
all right,
You creating content out there. If you do anything live, like spaces or a video like this, if
pin
you
it.
your audience pin it, yeah, you get a little bit of traction. One of
Good
my
to know.
one of my guests told me that. He's a content creator.
I'm actually unable to pin it though because I reposted it. I wonder if it's a quote retweet, it'll work.
Well, let's see. Usually you can repost, and then you'd have to click the three dots on the top.
Yeah, the option wasn't there. I'm gonna do a quote repost, and that
Maybe that's
will. I'm yeah. Let's talk about what are we going to talk about, Craig?
man.
Bitcoin.
I'd like to just get your backstory. How'd you get to El Salvador? Where are you from? Maybe even your childhood, so we know what kind of kid turns into creating
Ah.
yourself. Maybe some kids can identify with you and say, "That's where I want to be."
Yeah, that was actually my marketing tactic for a while before I was really serious about what I was doing. I thought, hey, I was a traveler. I was putting out a lot of content about my travels. This was in the 2010s. And I kind of realized my main demographic was people that came from my same background because we were all in a situation where we weren't sure how to discover purpose in our lives, at least the people that were like me. So
Mm.
I had left my hometown, which was a suburb of Los Angeles, where everything's kind of the same. No culture. Just obviously there's culture, but nothing very exciting. It's all very corporate, train the kids to become corporate workers and their 9 to 5s. And I wasn't into that. So I left. I started traveling. I studied abroad in college, and I never looked back until 12 years later when we got pregnant with a child. So, yeah, I would say that sent me on my trajectory. It also is, in a roundabout way, how I discovered Bitcoin, because another big reason I didn't want to be a part of that life was because especially after the bailouts, 2008, 2009, in the wake of all of that, me and my friends were just big conspiracy theorists looking into the world for the first time. I was writing my thesis about how things were all messed up with the corporatocracy in the United States. And I decided to live a bohemian life. I didn't want to have any part of it.
What's a bohemian life? I've never heard that phrase before.
I wanted to make art. I wanted to make music. I wanted to travel. I didn't want to concern myself with money, wealth, material comforts. I wanted to just get by on my own, doing what made me happy. And I think that works in your 20s. We're capable of it. We have the energy to do it. I think it doesn't last forever. But I did it. And like I was saying, money was just didn't feel right. It was war. It was what made war. It was what made it equality. And I just didn't agree with those things. So it wasn't until I discovered Bitcoin earlier on, but I didn't hear what I needed to hear to become a Bitcoiner. So I learned about it from Andreas Antonopoulos talking about banking the unbanked, banking the unbanked. And I heard all about that, and I just like, okay, so it's just like more money, right? Like, okay, it's the money of the future. Okay, great. But the hard cap didn't really register with me. I didn't really want to have anything to do with things like that. So I just ignored it for a few years until I learned about more community building technologies, like with Ethereum. Sorry, but that got me excited about the technology. Like, oh, okay, now I see what could actually be done in the real world with this stuff. And then I started spending more time with Bitcoiners, and finally, in 2018, at the peak of that bull run, a buddy of mine on Big Island was like, "Think about it. If everyone just started using Bitcoin, the governments wouldn't be able to fund these wars anymore, these endless wars." And that was it. That's what got me.
There.
Yeah,
Big one.
and I got my hat back there, and I would say that's one of the strongest reasons I I just have hope for the future, because it just, I'm like most people, it breaks my heart to see all the people that died needlessly just for this military industrial machine that just prints money to go to more war. So
Yeah. Yeah. And most people, unless you're, my father talked a lot about that in Vietnam, that there was so much waste and stuff would just get like brand new stuff would just get pushed into the ocean to make room on the pier for the next load that was coming in. And it was just, how fast can we consume more goods so we can just, and now I even think they don't even do that anymore. It's all contracted stuff. It's much more efficient at consuming capital. Back then.
indeed, yeah.
Yep. So how did you get to El Salvador? Maybe what was that trip? Or
Well, I suppose it's the continuation of the same journey, right? So I was living this bohemian lifestyle, traveling with no money, making music, making content, writing science fiction, connecting with people, just trying to live a real life as much as I could. I started a nonprofit in the middle of the 2010, 2015, and I was trying to just create media of positive, do good organizations in the world, because like NGOs, a lot of them don't have budgets to tell their story. So I was traveling around creating experiences for myself, opportunities like, hey, you guys want media for a month? Like, let me crash in the spare bedroom, or, so I was able to travel very cheaply for a long time, turn it into something. And then, like I mentioned, had the new family on the radar. So realized we had to figure something out. It didn't matter, because while we were in Argentina to get my wife's fiance visa, the lockdown started and we couldn't leave for all of 2020. So my son was born there. We ended up just stuck there, police checkpoints outside. We couldn't leave town. It was pretty intense. And I heard everyone complaining about it in the United States. And I was like, I don't think it's as bad there as it is here. But that happened. And then when that happened, I realized, okay, if the governments really do have this power, because by that point I had kind of come out of the rebellion after the 2008, 2009 stuff, and realizing how everything is bullshit. Everything we ever knew is just wrong. And I realized, okay, if this entity above me has the power to lock me down, I want to just be in paradise. I want to be somewhere where I don't have to worry or think about leaving. And that place for me was always the big island of Hawaii. So after Argentina, we got our life together in California, and we bought some property in Hawaii on the Big Island, volcanic area where there's very little government interference or bureaucracy to speak of. So we built a house completely unpermitted, all off grid, solar power, water catchment. I had bees, chickens, growing food. And I thought, this is it. I'm living the sovereign homesteading life. Like, this is it. And I thought that was going to be the rest of my life. But what I learned pretty soon from different angles, one of them being economic opportunity. I had spent all my Bitcoin to do that. And I thought, oh, I won't need to worry about money anymore, right? I'll just be living off the land. Like, that's what I wanted, to fuck off from society. Excuse my language, but I just wanted to do my own thing. And you disappeared, Craig, but I'll keep talking because I think we're streaming. And sovereign homesteading life just didn't really work for me. You're back. So the sovereign homesteading life turned out to not be optimal for raising two young kids in a tiny house where I still needed capital to survive. Kind of made it work. I was able to stretch by, but ended up just using the credit card too much and starting to, I was like, I don't want to live this lifestyle. I don't want to live this way. And around the same time, I was realizing, I also don't want to rely on the internet for my income. Like, it's important, and I believe everyone, this is part of my personal branding, is everyone should learn how to brand yourself, build a brand facing business with your face on it, figure out some unique skill set you can offer others, make content and sell it. I think that's super important to live a more sovereign life in this life. But that said, it's also really important to work with others and have community and have shared goals and shared visions. And that's what El Salvador offers. So we said goodbye to Hawaii. We moved down here. I've got a business partner that I met on Twitter. We started Sovereignty Studios here. He lives literally down the street. We have a podcast studio in there. We got a whole media and events team. We're starting our first retreat here to introduce people to El Salvador. And I could not feel more fulfilled because I get to work with people in real life. I get to have face-to-face meetings and interactions. We get to bring real guests into the studio. And we're throwing these retreats to expand our network and to, once again, meet people in real life. And so I think community is something we're realizing more and more lately is a critical part of just living more sovereign. Bitcoin, obviously, self-sovereign money, very important, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. And that's kind of the message we try to share is Bitcoin is just one piece to the puzzle. Where's your food coming from? Where's your support system if the grid goes down, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. Yeah, there is so much that I discovered in Bitcoin that had nothing to do with Bitcoin. I'm seeing I'm not the only person that found that out. It changed my diet, my relationships, my business, how everything, how I sleep, how I look at the sun now.
Well, it's the name of your show, right? It's Low Tide Preference. It changes everything.
That's where I got it from. I started the Bitcoin Daily Show, but then the more the discussion started to develop and I started to listen to the speakers, many of them, have discovered all kinds of truths that were not a part of my life. So as I started to incorporate them more, I was like, okay, I need to start a show that highlights the whole thing, not just the Bitcoin part of it. But that is what got me started. What have you found aside from that Bitcoin introduced you to that really had nothing to do with Bitcoin?
Ooh, well, I guess I could argue that a lot of my values were there anyway before I realized what Bitcoin was all about. So part of my message when I was a traveling content creator was like, hey, you can do it on your own. You can learn to be dependent on yourself and learn to humble yourself and get by on the goodwill of others, learn to not have money and learn to just be, I don't want to keep using the word sovereign, but it's just the word, right? Like be sovereign over yourself in a human body on the planet, because there are helpful and loving people everywhere in all different cultures that when you share that you're on a mission, like, hey, I'm traveling from A to B with no money. Would you give me a ride there? Or I'd love to tell you some stories. We get this vibe from the internet that no one wants to help each other and everyone's in it for themselves. But once you really put yourself into the world with nothing, no comforts, no resources. Like I hitchhiked for a while on one trip with just a backpack and an accordion. And I just said, I want to see what happens. I want to connect with people with nothing. Like people are just going to connect with me as a human here. And I did the same with them. And you really see the beauty of humankind in those situations. So anyway, that message for me was like, hey, yes, you can do it. And a lot of people I had grown up going to high school with, like I mentioned, I was from a very bland hometown. People went to their jobs, they had their careers, and they were just depressed. They weren't happy with their lives. And so my thing was like, hey, drop everything and go travel. And I promise you it'll be okay. You got some savings, use them, because your life only happens once. And you don't have a family yet. You don't have all these attachments yet. Do it. Just do it. And so that was kind of like my business model at the time. And I took some people to travel with me and I showed them the ropes of how it goes. I took a teenager once, an old family friend asked me to take their 16-year-old traveling because he was just having too tough of a time. So I took him on a summer trip and it changed his life. And not because of me, but because just traveling and humbling yourself and putting yourself out of your comfort zone is just a really powerful exercise in seeing who you are. And it helps you develop yourself helps you develop confidence, helps you develop faith and just trust in that everything's going to be okay. You just have to let go of your expectations of what does okay mean. Like, yeah, so you don't get to sleep in a bed that night, but you're going to survive.
So how
So, yeah.
message has been a while for you. So how many years have you kind of lived that lifestyle? I guess, like you said, since you got out of college, right?
Yeah, so even before then is really when it started in 2008 or so when I was studying abroad and I learned how to hitchhike and I learned about the couch surfing program and it was just off to the races. So I was like, sorry, mom and dad. I dropped out of school twice and I ended up going back and I was able to like maneuver my bachelor's degree to be something that felt fulfilling, like I wasn't wasting my time. And after that, I just got the hell out. I had some savings from a Hollywood job. I had also had a 9 to 5, and during that time, I was working with middle-aged guys that just hated their lives. And I was like, "All right, I'm never doing this. Thanks for the opportunity, thanks for the paycheck, but I'm out of here." And it's funny because that's an opportunity that a lot of people would do anything for, get your foot in the door in Hollywood, because that's essentially to get by in Hollywood. That's all you need is connections and, get your foot in the door, start off in the shipping room and then you work your way up and soon you're a producer or something like that. But I just couldn't do it. My heart wouldn't let me do it. So to go back to the question about, Bitcoin values and all of that is once I learned about Bitcoin being self-sovereign over your money, I always hated banks. I always just didn't want to have money. I'm like, if I'm going to have money, I want to use it. I want to circulate. I want to use it as energy. And that's kind of what the fiat paradigm wants because inflation, right? Like invest it, put it in the stock market, put your cash anywhere where it's going to get a better return than the inflation. And I was like, I'm just going to put my money in myself and the things that I deem important in this world and invest in those things. And so I did, and I never had any money, and none of those investments ever made me more money except for Bitcoin. And then when that investment did well, I thought, hey, like my family doesn't have a home. We don't know what we're doing. I've got a second child on the way. We need to have a plan here. And I thought, okay, well, money is great. Having Bitcoin is great, but the here and now is the utmost priority. So that's why I spent all my Bitcoin to build that homestead. It's because that is more important, to have that home, to be able to teach my kids the importance of growing your own food and being as self-sustainable as possible. All that stuff was the most important. So like I said, I learned from that, but I stand by that needing to be the decision I made at the time is because I couldn't imagine living any other way. And doing a life, having a job just to make a paycheck so I wouldn't have to spend my Bitcoin. And I was like, no, that doesn't feel right. So I suppose there's a certain amount of integrity in Bitcoin, just in the protocol level, and Bitcoiners as well. Like a lot of the people I've worked with, everything's just a handshake agreement, right? And everything is about prove the work and then you'll get the gig, things like that. And I really resonate with that because I'm kind of the same way when I hire someone. Like, okay, like, how do I know you're going to do the work? How do I know I can trust you? But if someone's just sending me something like, hey, I made this, I'd love to work with you if you like it. I'm like, okay, great, this feels good. And then you know that they can perform. So there's a lot of this proof of work aspect in how I see life that I've really vibed with. And that's my roundabout way of answering that question.
Yeah. So where do you think Hollywood's going to be with all this new, I guess, wave of content and AI? And it seems like everybody has a Hollywood on their laptop nowadays. Are they going to survive this since you have to put in both worlds?
I did. I mean, I got out of there. I suppose, for whatever my opinion is worth, Hollywood's going out the door, but they do have mass resources and influence still. So that's what the strikes were all about is, you can't use AI to write the scripts, right? You have to keep hiring the people. I don't know, even actors. They're just using AI now for actors and stars. And I think we're already seeing influencers or just having a strong personal brand is more valuable than just a piece of content itself. I mean, we've already known that. We've known that for a long time. You put Tom Cruise in a movie, it's going to sell, right? You put Brad Pitt in a movie, it's going to sell. So there's the strength to that. But now anyone can become that. And so we're starting to see that in entertainment. And for example, my brother's a big YouTuber and he never wanted to go the Hollywood route either. And he's a big YouTuber, over 1 million subscribers. And he just decided to make his own movie. He crowdfunded it and he's like, yeah, we're going to sell this to Netflix or whoever will buy it. We're just going to do it ourselves. And they're still working on that. The point is anyone can do that. You build your own audience in your mom's basement and raise the money, do it yourself, and then you can become a Hollywood level figure without having to deal with Hollywood. You could keep it all on your own terms.
Yeah, and it just seems like no matter what, you still got 8 billion times 24 hours a day, and everyone's fighting for attention however they can get it. If they can get it through a movie, if they can get it through a certain channel, that's how it's going to come.
Yeah,
So,
the fighting for attention thing it's an interesting way to put it, because that is what it is for a lot of people. And through my, I guess, studies and investigation and research on this whole attention economy, I found that, once again, going back to Bitcoin, and this is where the creator economy and Bitcoin have a lot in common. It's about providing value. So you want attention, provide good value to people. Make content that helps people transform their lives. And obviously you need to know how to do those things, right? You need to have those skills developed, or you need to develop them. But essentially everyone has a unique perspective. Every single person has a unique perspective. You start exploring that through content creation. You start seeing what hits, what people like to hear. You start creating more of that, and you're not fighting for attention anymore. You're just organically generating it out of what you enjoy talking about.
and so so you're more on I guess, value creation, versus entertainment. Well, I guess it is part of the entertainment bucket.
I say creator versus influencer. And maybe this is a broad generalization, but I think an influencer is someone that creates content and then monetizes with sponsorships or random plugs. So you watch some guy's funny Instagram videos, and then all of a sudden he'll have an advertisement video for a VPN or something like what. Meanwhile, you have creators who you could say, like Mr. Beast is a creator. He does do advertisements, sponsorships, but he also creates products. So a creator creates content to then sell their offers. And then normally, in order to become someone that can sell an offer, you have to have an audience that's following you that would actually appreciate that offer and would actually take out their wallet and pay you for it.
Right. Yeah, I noticed. I don't know if you've ever heard of Gary Vee.
Of course. Yeah.
I don't know how you could be in that situation, not run across him, but he always said, and I'd like to get your take on this. He said, if you're in an industry, become the media company of that industry, because you'll see a lot of niche industries that just nobody's done that.
That's exactly what we're doing. That's why we're called Sovereignty Studios. And that's why we're in El Salvador. So what our long-term vision is to, as we're broadcasting this bottom-up renaissance, as we call it here in El Salvador, broadcasting those stories, sharing the stories of what's going on. We do media and events. We're now the official marketing partners of the Adopting Bitcoin 2024. So we are creating all this media. We are trying to become a very strong voice for the movement towards sovereignty, self-sovereignty, the sovereign individuals, as they say it. And long-term, we want to become an incubator for sovereign individuals. So people do gravitate towards El Salvador because of the policies being put in place here. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like Bitcoin is just a very small part of the story here. But what can be built here thanks to these policies that many would say are decentralizing government to more back to the people. And then builders are coming here to actually build those things. So for example, we just had a chat with Fabian from Illuminodes, and they're building a digital health identity, sovereign digital health identity on Nostr. So they're using the Nostr protocol. So to basically make an app that you can bring, they have one partner hospital so far to do their proof of concept, but basically you own your health data. So you don't have to, you can go into a new hospital and choose to share your health data with them. So your health data is just automatically in this machine that's generating $1.5 trillion worth of profit every year that you don't see any bit of. You could essentially one day be a shareholder of that profit by sharing your data. You can keep your privacy. But anyway, El Salvador is a place to build that kind of thing because that's what it's becoming friendly towards. And so that's why it's really fascinating what's happening in El Salvador, is because the possibilities are limitless, right? We're coming out of this fiat paradigm, which is obviously going to die. It's not possible for it to survive. So the new paradigm has to be built. It's being built. And this is actually a place where you can take these decentralized ideas, protocol, put them into real life, which we don't see so much. And also you go to Berlin, you go to El Zonte here in El Salvador, and you have circular economies. You can go pay with Bitcoin at pretty much any place in El Zonte. Any place on that beach, you can pay with Bitcoin. Like, pretty cool.
Yeah, that was so neat when I was in Nashville and I was able to just spend Bitcoin. It's the most Bitcoin I've ever spent just in one weekend, because I could just spend everything. There was so many places, of course, all the vendors and stuff, but then I even paid for the Airbnb and some other stuff.
Cool.
So that was really nice to actually see the means of exchange.
I've spoken to people that have never even used Lightning Network before. And so when I'm talking to them about coming to this retreat, and they're like, oh, wow, I've never even used Lightning. And you're saying I just use Lightning to pay for lunch? Like, yeah, it's really cool. It's faster than a credit card.
Yeah. I used my Strike. I've been a member of Strike, or been on that in River for quite a while. It's where I get my Bitcoin and stuff and buy it. So, it was really easy to use it on the Strike account.
Yeah.
What other platforms do you recommend for people to acquire Bitcoin and kind of Lightning wallets? Or
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I just use whatever, Coinbase or Cash App. Cash App does Lightning now, which is neat. And, here at the Bitcoin hardware store in El Zonte, shout out to Ronnie, there's a Lightning Network ATM. You can put in $20 cash, show your wallet, and it'll send you sats. And, for the privacy conscious, that's a very viable alternative down here.
Yeah.
Using the big apps.
That's right. Okay, so if you were trying to help or just advise someone to take some first steps in just creating your own brand, creating content, what are they thinking about? What are the first steps that they would be taking?
Yeah, well, there's a lot to consider, and I've been working on this exact sequence for a program I'm launching soon. And the first thing I think that one must consider is, how much energy can you dedicate to this? How much can you commit? How many hours per day will you have to sit down and try something you've never tried before, or maybe you've tried before and you failed, but it can be a full-time job to build a brand, build a business, create content. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. I see how many shows you're putting out there. It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot. And at that time, you're not generating any revenue, so you're not going to hire a producer. Maybe you are. Maybe you do have the money to do that, to invest, and that's great. But I would say most people, there isn't a budget to hire people, so you have to do pretty much everything yourself. So then you have to find the tools. You have to learn what tools you need to make it as quick and optimized as possible. You have to figure out are you going to write? Are you going to make videos? I think videos are probably the most important form of media you can get into these days. Even on Twitter, my video posts do way better than my written posts. I don't have a huge following, but when I put my videos out there with a well-written caption, description, tweet, they do great. And so X is becoming a more media-friendly app. Obviously, Instagram, I don't use TikTok, but all the platforms now are just optimized for videos. So once you've decided, okay, I can put at least 2 hours per day into this to start creating content and to learn, then you do have to start writing. You have to learn how to write. Even if you're not going to put written posts out there, learn to write. Copywriting 101. How do you write efficiently? Like, how do you nail home a point quickly without wasting words, without wasting time? How do you write a hook? How do you engage an audience? How do you present a problem that your audience has, and then share the solution so you can demonstrate that you're a person that knows the answers to these concerns that your ideal audience has. So learn to write. So commit, find the time and learn to commit, learn some basic writing, and then get comfortable on video. And this is where my authentic video coaching, I guess, business has come in. Is I have been making video content for so long, it always has just come natural to me to pull out my selfie camera or GoPro or whatever and just talk. But a lot of people I've worked with know, and they know they need to, and they're really good writers already. They're really good content creators. They have followings, but they've never made video. So the next step is to get comfortable on video. And quick plug, I have a free 7-day challenge. If you want to start getting comfortable in video, you can sign up at jordanurbs.com. My link is in my Twitter profile. It's 7 days in your inbox. Every day is a little lesson and a prompt, so you can practice doing video. And that is for beginning to intermediate to almost even advanced people. I do think creating authentic video content is a pretty spiritual experience. I mean, you're forcing yourself to come out. Like, you have to show yourself. You can't hide anymore. When you're writing tweets and blogs, you can still kind of hide. But once you decide to show your face, Pandora's box is open. And we talked about this with Cosmonaut, how showing your face is one of the toughest things you can do, especially when we're talking about Bitcoin. And the revolution here is, do we want to show our face? Because there could be consequences down the line with tyrannical governments. And my opinion is, hey, we got to own what we believe in. We put our face on it. And the more of us that do that, the less of a threat there's going to be in the future, because we all can believe in ourselves through the network of one another. So
yeah, and they're just as capable of getting you, even if you don't show yourself. It's not like they have a hard time.
That's a good point too. Yeah, so you kind of just got to throw fear out the window. And that's, I guess, just an overall metaphor, whether you're a Bitcoiner or not, trying to do video content, is just get rid of the fear. There's plenty of fear that can come along with going any new boundary breaking, comfort zone defying activity you want to partake in. There's going to be fear, and that means you're growing. Fear is super important to experience and know. I'm experiencing fear. Okay, how do I move past it? And you've passed it, and soon, a month or two later, you'll be like, oh, I can't believe that scared me before. I can't believe that I was intimidated by that, because now it's natural. So that's the next step. Yeah.
You know, I started listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you ever run.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Huge.
Oh, yeah. Big Joe Dispenza fan. And he always says that, and maybe you comment on this, but he always says that why not create a future based off the unlimited possibilities and not off of these memories of the past, to where you're just kind of repeating what you've done. And so if you're trying to build the life of what you've done so far, you know, you're very limited experiences versus what could be done. But it's going to be unknown. It's obviously going to be charting uncharted territory for you, which is scary. The fear of the unknown is probably the biggest fear out there, but it doesn't mean it's going to be bad. But I think people get stuck in this, you know, devil I know versus the devil I don't.
The power of the unknown, the power of the fear of the unknown is a huge tool once we learn to use it. And it applies to any realm of life. As far as Joe Dispenza goes, yeah, I mean, we are conditioned almost through our society to project the past, our past even, onto the future, when the future is still unwritten. Like, there is nothing set in stone ever. And this is what John Dennehy of Me Premier Bitcoin talks about. Shout out to My First Bitcoin down here. They're doing Bitcoin education, and they're in schools. And it's not about Bitcoin. Yes, sure, it's about learning how to use a wallet, your seed phrase, and all that. But that's like the second half of their course. The first half is learning about how money works and learning that now Bitcoin exists, and the future we've always thought that has to become next is no longer the case. And it opens up just this whole new way of thinking. Like, oh, wow, I am not limited to this as I've always known. And Bitcoin offers all this new hope and opportunity in all these different ways, because you can't be controlled anymore. I mean, that money can't be taken away. You have freedom with it. So the future is unwritten, and you can never know what's going to happen. And so, I mean, if we're talking about content creation, like, literally anything can happen. You start making videos. The reason I'm here right now is because a year and a half ago, I finally decided to take my personal brand, like, for real. I'd had it for so long, and I'd like kind of come in and out. And finally, I was like, you know what? I was in Hawaii. There's no economy to speak of where we were. It's just, I was like, all right, I got to figure out how to do this. And I started making content, started making video, started building a network. My business partner, Michael, I know him from Twitter. We work together on making videos. The whole world opens up when you start making video content. You start showing who you are. You start showing what you stand for. A big part of the video content you should make, especially as a beginner, you have to inject your values into it, because it's not just the knowledge you have to share as an expert. Essentially, you're trying to brand yourself as someone that can help a certain person solve a certain problem, but it's also the values. So if I can help you get better at making video content, that's great. But it's probably going to be because you learn that I'm a Bitcoiner and I share a lot of the same values that you'll want to work with me. Because there's a million video coaches out there, right? But there's not so many that are Bitcoiners that share your values.
Right. Yeah, and the Bitcoin value seems to be just it crosses so many cultures and boundaries. It more speaks to do humans like being stolen from? I don't think there's many out there that say, yeah, me, please steal all my stuff.
But how many people know they're being stolen from?
Yeah,
that's the other thing.
Or how many people know that they're being stolen from and feel powerless to do anything about it.
Right.
Right. So I think Bitcoin kind of unites the human brand of freedom, of wanting to be able to protect your property. And I think that's more of a universal language that we can build upon. Whereas it seems like there's a lot of division across the board on everything. Like things are constantly trying to divide us. And whereas Bitcoin seems like a great uniter.
The only obstacle in the way of the whole human species being Bitcoiners is ignorance. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. I mean, 100%. maybe that's a bold statement, but I feel like everyone who's not one just doesn't understand yet. And that's not their fault, right? But
right. Well, Michael Saylor said that on his Nashville speech. He said that there are Bitcoiners and there are
Bitcoiners that don't know it yet.
Yeah, something like that.
I didn't hear a speech, but I would imagine, yeah.
And, because once you understand it, it's like, I imagine the only people that would not like Bitcoin would be those in charge of the printing press. Because
exactly, yeah.
Recognize this is going to take my power from me.
Yeah, the predator class.
Yeah. Yeah.
It brings me back to El Salvador. It's like, you can always be distrustful of politicians. There's plenty of reason for that. But there's something about a politician giving away the ultimate power of the state, which is money, right? Like giving it away. Like Bitcoin is legal. And that's what everyone always goes back to, because everyone's always like, oh, what's going to happen with Bukele? Is like he's secretly, vying for power or whatever. But it's like, he gave away the money. Like, at the end of the day, what else is there?
Yeah, that is kind of the kill shot. To remain honest when you leave is you destroy the printing press. And so whoever's going to follow is going to have to convince the population to give it back.
Well, that said, yeah, there wasn't a printing press here. There hasn't been for a while. They've just been on the dollar anyway.
Yeah.
But I think time will tell. The dollar's, shooting itself, doing its own self-kill shot on its own. So eventually, I know, enough people wake up and they opt out, and that's that.
Yeah. Now, it seems like I remember I used to do some VC work where I was working, recruiting founders for companies. And it seemed like at that time that countries were just starting to wake up to actually compete for citizens. And I feel like El Salvador has kind of just rushed to the front of the line and is just recruiting the digital citizens, starting with the Bitcoiners and stuff, but really just any digital nomad that can just live a life remotely stuff. It's like they are really, they're putting out there a solid case for you to move here. Do you feel that over there?
Oh, yeah, that's why we're here. I mean, we saw the opportunity, right? And I don't think it's limited to digital nomads. In fact, I think it goes far beyond that because, well, for one, they're targeting freedom-minded individuals, right? They're targeting Bitcoiners. They're targeting the people that have woken up to the world, which isn't that many people. Like, truth be told, it's not that many people that have woken up to what's going on. And I always think like, oh man, I'm scared of what's going to happen in El Salvador with the influx of immigrants that are like me that are going to show up. But you walk around most places here, if not all places, and you'll hardly see any gringos. And we already think we're late, right? Everyone think we're late. Most of the people moving here are Salvadorians that left a few decades ago, and now they're coming back with their North American money and building houses here, trying to start a life here. So as far as the marketing campaign to get people here, it's a certain type of person, and obviously moving across the world to a new country is not a simple task for most people. Maybe for a digital nomad, sure, but a lot of digital nomads don't want to settle down either. They want to keep moving. They like the freedom. I mean, I was one of them. So that's what I would say. Maybe you make your home base in a country like this with friendly policies, forward-thinking governments, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, time will tell. This next term with Bukele is said to be focused on the economy. So the first was security. Like there needs to be a foundation for basic security for people to live their lives before you can have economic growth. Now, this next term, it's going to be all about economic growth. And I tell you, if you're here on the ground, there's just building everywhere. There's development everywhere. And it's encouraging from that perspective. It's not as encouraging from the perspective of tearing down the forests and all that, but they seem to be kind of like keeping it localized, like pockets of development and then large swaths of forest. So I hope it stays that way. But case in point, there's development everywhere. There's investment everywhere. And things are on the rise here. Google started a headquarters here. There's all these Bitcoin companies going on. And I think people like myself here, like the Sovereignty Studios, there's just going to be more and more people with bright ideas to come fill a gap in the market here. And we'll see what happens, because all the people like myself, we're all trying to do creative things within this scope of building a more decentralized future on a Bitcoin standard.
Yeah. And I think you've got examples of like Dubai, Singapore, what's like even Shenzhen in South China, where when you just allow man to be free, you can go from 0 to 100 miles an hour in like a decade. And I think El Salvador is the next great, almost city state that's going to just be kind of like the next Dubai or something like that.
The next Singapore, yeah, or
for sure,
or Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely the talk. That's definitely the talk on the street, and we'll see what happens. I'm rooting for it.
Yeah, because I mean, when you say everyone in El Salvador is not getting stolen from, and they're not have all this red tape burdening them, they're just going to express themselves at a greater magnitude faster. And so they're
right.
Yeah. Taste the planet.
So El Salvador is kind of starting over in a lot of ways. It missed out on a lot of opportunities on various fronts over the decades because of the gangs and violence and corruption. So in a lot of ways, it's starting over. And that's why there's such ripe opportunity for Bitcoin-esque startups and people to come build things here, potentially along the lines of the new paradigm we all want to build and see. But that said, I lost my train of thought. What?
Well, I was gonna comment on how, of all the big cities that have been born, this may be the first one that capitalizes on the digitization of property.
Right. I think that's what I was going to say. So they're kind of starting over. And in the same way, yes, Bitcoin's legal here, but no one understands it. 99% of the local population is completely ignorant to Bitcoin, why it's important, et cetera, et cetera. So there's also starting over on that educational front. So it's our job to teach people, to onboard people onto Bitcoin. And more people are more open to it because they know it's legal, right? It's okay. So we know it's not a scam, or we know it's not illegal at least. So the government won't come after us. So it's not like other countries in the United States. You go to a store, do you accept Bitcoin? And people might be like, whoa, what? Or especially maybe a few years ago. But so there's all this starting over, and it's perfect because we can start over with all the lessons we've learned from everything that went wrong in the United States, for example, and the things we're seeing the potential for, like with Nostr and the digital health identity and Bitcoin and all these things. There's so many things going on here. And so it's like the perfect place for a big experiment.
Yeah. Now, where do you think it's important for people to create content on, with the birth of Nostr and X coming on the scene, at least with Musk coming on, and then Nostr nearly at the same time against the old guard of like Facebook and YouTube and some of these other like Rumble and Truth Social. It seems like there's so many places to create content. So where do you start?
Well, we have this discussion often because I'm always kind of kicking myself that I'm not more on Nostr, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Nostr is a protocol. The social media is just one aspect of Nostr. So when I say Nostr, I mean the social media aspect of Nostr. The problem is reach. You're not going to reach many people on Nostr. You're going to reach other Bitcoiners, great. And that's pretty much it. So that's one thing to consider. If you're trying to build an audience with a message, you're trying to onboard people that aren't Bitcoiners, for example, then you need to be on X or even YouTube, and you need to create content that can capture a segment of a different audience, and then you slowly can bring them into our waves. So there's that aspect. Like, I kind of believe we should all be doing everything we can to use self-hosted, decentralized, protocol level, like federated software. But I think there's a reason no one uses Mastodon. I think there's a reason Nostr hasn't caught on yet. And I think that's because of reach. Like, we want to be able to reach more people. Everyone is on X. So that's why Bitcoin Twitter is on X. So there's kind of an ethical thing there that I acknowledge. But at the same time, what are our true goals? Why are we trying to use these platforms? And that's to communicate with as many people as possible. So that's why we use X. And I think data sharing and profit. I think data sharing is its own problem. I think the fact that Elon now shares revenue with creators on X is huge. It could probably go a little further. I don't really know. I'm glad Twitter has a premium option now to pay a few bucks because, as they say, like if something's free, you're the product. So I think it's good to slowly get in that mindset that if we want to take back our own power, we have to understand what it requires. So like with Sovereignty Studios, we like have our own server and we host our own video calls and websites because not that there's problems that come with that, right? And there's hiccups here and there. But the point is we want to be sovereign over the technology we're using. And I feel like that's just an important thing to try to practice whenever you can. And it's the same reason I started a homestead. I was like, I want to grow my own food. I want to know I'm in charge of my food. Now, obviously, it's not as simple as that, and you have to have community. So you'd be like, oh, you grow the tomatoes, we make the kombucha, whatever. You come to the market and you share. But anyway, so that's the first part of it, is there's this question of ethics as Bitcoiners on a big open source decentralized money protocol. Well, why aren't we using open source social media more? There's that. But once again, reach is super important. And I know X isn't doing so much censorship anymore. So that's also important. YouTube does a lot of censorship. Like on our live stream with the Illuminodes guy about the digital health identity, we mentioned COVID or something. And now that live stream is unavailable, or it was a few days ago for no reason. It doesn't even say why. And I don't know if that's why, but there's always that risk. There's that potential for risk. And imagine if you're a content creator and you build a really big audience of your perfect demographic to sell your product to, and then they suddenly freeze your account. They cut your account, and then you no longer have access to your whole audience. Like that's your livelihood. And so once again, in the creator space, we talk about having a newsletter. Like first and foremost, you should build a newsletter of emails because that can't be censored. You have your CSV file of emails. You'll always have that, but your Twitter account could disappear tomorrow. And then what?
Absolutely. And I've always been afraid of that, here I am building a Bitcoin community. And if I had to pick one natural enemy of centralized authority, decentralized money. So it's not like I'm creating content around working out or, how to fix a car or how to race Mustangs.
But it's not even about that, Craig. Like what I mentioned earlier, if you want to build a strong brand with the right audience, you need to share your values. You need to share what's important to you. And when those values are taboo or you're suddenly not allowed to talk about them because of whatever propaganda campaign is going on behind the scenes at Google, then you're no longer building an authentic business. You're forced to censor yourself. Yeah. And I think Bitcoin, and like you mentioned earlier, we have free money now, especially here. So it gives us a chance to be free and we can express ourselves better because we don't have to worry about that kind of financial censorship. And so it's the same thing. Like I want to build an authentic brand. I don't want to censor myself because the social media platform tells me I can't say that. Like, what am I doing then? I'm not like, what is like, this is fun, sure, but it's fun because I can be myself and I can connect with people that value me for myself. And so when you're building an Instagram business or TikTok, or I don't know how strict the censorship is on TikTok, but or YouTube or Facebook, and you have to put yourself in a box so you don't get censored, then you're no longer being authentic. And I think that goes against the ethos of Bitcoin. That goes against your own personal integrity.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically what you're saying is you don't want to leave your slave job of 9 to 5 to then become a slave to what content.
To the algorithms. Exactly. Right. Yeah. That's a really good point, Craig. Like, like, especially in the creator economy, because most of the creator economy, and I'm like a lot in the creator economy, a lot in the Bitcoin space, like on Twitter and stuff, people don't even talk about it. Like, there's no concept, unless they're Bitcoiners. There's no concept that like, I could just like, I'm just putting myself in another rat race here. And then it gets stressful and you have to have your own deadlines for marketing campaigns and all that. It's like, no, you're trying to build a life of freedom. Treat it like that.
Yeah. If anybody is listening to this is afraid, go listen to the last guy interviewed. His name is G Money. And when you see how far past concern he is about everybody come and get him, you'll feel better about whatever version of that you're getting ready to create. There are some content creators that push it all the way to the edge, almost like they're taunting the government to come after them.
Well, that's how you build a following. You got to be outrageous, right? But as long as it's authentic, it's okay, in my opinion.
I 100% agree. If you're not being yourself, I just think it's going to show through your content. And there's something, I can't put my finger on it, but a human can just tell when you're faking it. And I don't know how it comes through the content or through the screen or through the voice or through the words, but it's like you can just spot it instantly. It's almost like an instinct.
And a lot of people are actively seeking that kind of content too. So those are just social circles, try to stay out of.
Yeah. I think, matter of fact, I might have heard this from Gary Vee when he was saying it's almost like who can be the most authentic is going to win.
Right. Yeah. We use Gary Vee as what do you call it? Like a prompt parameter on ChatGPT. We're like, rewrite this like you're Gary Vee.
And then there's like 17 F-bombs and all these swear words.
Yeah, we cut those out. But yeah, it's a bit raunchy all the time. But that's his brand, right? So good for him. It's great.
That is. And it's that very, bare knuckles, get in there, start creating content. I've been very much a student of just start and learn on the job. What is your take on that?
I'm the same way. And I think it's kind of how you have to be. This is what I always like. It takes a certain kind of person to, and I'll just use becoming a creator online, for example. Like, it takes a certain kind of person to just decide I'm going to build my own business. It takes another kind of person, or the next level of that person, to be, hey, I'm going to make a business with my face on it. So once you're there, you're kind of like, all right, I'm figuring this out now. Like before I started, I read a lot of tweets. I joined some newsletters. I didn't have the money to invest in courses or whatever, but those are available too by big names. But, you can only do so much research before you just got to start and learn the lessons on your own. And that goes for anything. Like, you got to just do it. Say, start like self-custodying your Bitcoin. You got to lose some Bitcoin first before you figure it out. I'm pretty sure we've all lost some through lost wallets and stuff.
Yeah, if you really want to learn fast, just go invest in a bunch of shit coins. Just pick some random ones. The sketchier, the better. You'll learn super fast.
That's the rite of passage right there. Yeah.
I had to walk through that for 2 years. I learned some hard lessons there.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thinking power of failure is, I think I heard Paula Hapatia said that mistakes are the most information-dense information you can get.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, failure, is the biggest way to learn. And I think it was, I want to say Ralph Waldo Emerson was like, do the thing and you shall have the power. I'm probably butchering that. But in that, it's like loaded, right? Like, you just have to do it, because with it comes all the lessons you learn, all the failures, and then you have that power that comes from learning those lessons.
Yeah, and another group I've studied a bunch of, warfare, even like with the Navy SEALs. I remember they had a famous quote that was like, no plan of action survives the first round of fire. And these are people that plan on top of plan on top of plan before they ever put a man in danger. And if a bullet is fired, all your plans just fall apart. Kind of like the famous Mike Tyson quote is, everybody's got a plan, you get punched in the face. And so there's really nothing you can do to really plan before you just go and start and do face plant after face plant. That's been my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, the cool thing about content creation, especially if you're doing video, authentic video, is like, yeah, it's face plant after face plant. And it also develops you as a person. Yes. Because you just got to get rid of your self-conscious insecurities. You got to get rid of so much baggage that you probably picked up in high school or whatever. Like, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but like, even just posting video content on my Instagram where I know my siblings might see it, or like people I used to know, like, what are they going to think of me? Like, you just got to push past all that. Be like, no, this is me now. And this goes back to when I was a lone traveler. One thing that's great about solo travel is you don't carry any expectations of who you're supposed to be. Like, you make new friends, you meet new people, and they don't know you as like who you're supposed to be, or like who your social life back home knows you as. Like, and because we feel that, right? We feel like there's even when I go to my family reunions, I feel like there's a role I am as the oldest sibling, and like I can't just be me in the same way I would around friends or something.
Yeah.
And that's just baggage. Got to get rid of all that with everything. Right.
Well, maybe let's rip the Band-Aid off on some of these and give some face plants in our memory to the audience. Shoot, I could go first. I remember when I started the Bitcoin Daily, we were doing X Spaces 2 hours a day, 8 to 10 without miss for like 300 days. And I had no idea how to put something in the nest. I heard people say I threw it up in the nest. I had speakers come up and throw stuff in the nest. And it was where you share an article. Finally, I had just come live on stage and said, guys, what the heck is a nest and how do I put stuff in it? And here I am running the show and don't know how to do that. My audience was just, I got the kick out of it. So anyway, that was.
So we're talking about embarrassing experiences on video. Yeah. Oh man, I have so many of them. I'll share one I've never really shared before because it makes me so ashamed. Perfect. Yeah, I'm gonna leave the comfort zone here and get some vulnerability. I mean, look, it was a long time ago, so I'm a very different person now. But I started my first YouTube channel. It was 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, and I had a GoPro on my forehead, and I would just travel around and like show my travels and like conversations with people. Anyway, so I had the bright idea to bring it to a party with a bunch of strangers in Montreal. And I was with like a date from a dating app, a dating site. And we had met twice and we got along. She invited me to this party with her band. And anyway, I just got really, really drunk. And I had the camera rolling. And they essentially asked me to leave the party for whatever reason. I think I made my date cry because I was talking to another girl or something.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, the next day I'm all hungover and I'm looking at the footage because I was rolling while I was blacked out. And so it was like one of those stereotypical embarrassing moments that you have, in your early 20s. But I had it on camera. So it wasn't just like someone telling me, dude, you were really fucked up last night. No, I was watching it and like the amount of shame that went through me. And I mean, that was a life-changing moment for me. I was like, all right, well, I'm changing my ways now because this is unacceptable. But yeah, so I mean, I guess that wasn't a live stream. I never published it, but having the camera rolling showed me something about myself and about my, I guess, pastimes that I no longer could agree with.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you, what do you think? Do you think that there's so much edited, now nearly infinitely edited stuff that people are starting to crave more live in person audio video because it's becoming more rare to see live out there?
That's why we're doing this in El Salvador. That's why we're hosting retreats. That's why we're trying to bring people here because that's the future. It's like all of this centralized internet anyway. It's all about putting you in bubbles. It's all about keeping you outraged. It's all about your filter bubbles and your echo chambers. And so when we recognize that real life is with real people, it's with real community, I think something really attractive about that. that we'll all eventually we go backwards. It's kind of like content creation, like video content. There's like styles, call it like a pendulum. So like right now on Instagram, it's really popular to just have like a really basic video, like of you, I don't know, looking at the lake. And then there's a caption, like a long text over it, which may as well just be a tweet, right? But it's on Instagram and it's a call to video, but it's not, right? But that's a trend right now. And then one day the trend of, who knows, I don't know, TikTok dance videos, for example, would come back. And so there's always just these trends of what's popular with content on the different platforms. And right now we're definitely experiencing, do you know Sam Selleck, the bodybuilder guy on YouTube? He made like millions of subscribers in like a very short period of time. He just has these long unedited videos of him going to the gym and working out, and he's just talking to the camera like you're there. And there's like no edits. It's super boring.
Curly hair. He's like a massive.
Yeah. And then he's like taking his supplements and he's talking about his day. It's the most boring shit ever. But if you're into bodybuilding or into lifting weights, and you know, I'm not gonna lie, it's mesmerizing looking at a guy with that kind of figure, right? Like it's like a Greek god. But as far as our standards for content of 2 years ago, you'd be like, why does this guy have 1 million subscribers? It wouldn't even be possible. But that style's coming back. And I mean, my videos 10 years ago were like that, and no one ever cared because that wasn't the style.
Yeah, Devin Larratt, he's the world champion arm wrestler. Same kind of content. He doesn't know how to create content at all, but he just literally films him in the gym doing crazy, normal stuff. Terrible lighting, terrible audio, terrible everything, and he's got crazy following.
Oh, and to your point, it's like if you can just show your authenticity, show yourself, then it doesn't matter about the editing, because like you said, people are trying to get back to that real life feel. They want to feel like you're a real person. They want to feel like there's a potential to meet you in real life, for example. Mm-hmm. And so like when I first moved here, I did 2 weeks of a video every day of me moving to El Salvador. And they were the most successful videos I'd ever made. And like I had retweets from big accounts, and like some of them were super boring. In fact, the one that did the best had like 33,000 views, was my second day of me showing how I was sleeping on the floor on like a makeshift bed out of a suitcase. And then I had a beautiful view in the backyard. And then I put a fan together that I bought at Walmart. It was the most boring video ever. It had nothing to do with El Salvador, but it was because I moved to El Salvador, and the video went like, for my standards, viral. And I was like, what is it? Like, why are people watching this video? It's so weird. But to your point, it's like people just want to see something real. And I think that is definitely where the pendulum is swinging right now. Hopefully it'll like stop swinging once it gets there.
Matter of fact, you should probably just make a boring video of you going to a beach and just saying, look at all these Bitcoin vendors, because I hear about it, but I've not yet seen one video so far of somebody just showing it.
Yeah, well, it becomes not boring anymore when you suddenly see someone walking, right, in real life. You see my feet, you see the trees, you see real people looking at that guy doing a selfie video at the beach. There's something about that. I get maybe it's voyeuristic, or maybe it's just living vicariously, but people like it. Well, maybe I'll try that. We always laugh, like in El Salvador, you can make a video of anything and people will love it because it's El Salvador.
Right. I say that about New Orleans. I can just
Oh man. Well, New Orleans is magic everywhere. There's always something interesting to look at.
It really is. I keep threatening to say, all right, I'm just going to pick some dates, and I'm just going to say, all right, 50 people can come, because everybody wants to come visit New Orleans. I keep threatening it, so I'm going to have to do it. But
you live in New Orleans?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I lived there for a time. I tried to make it my home. I couldn't handle all the partying though.
Oh my gosh, I can handle it.
Yeah. As a musician, it was just like too good to be true.
Oh, it's happening.
That place. Yeah.
People don't understand. On a Tuesday, you can see 80 live shows.
Oh, you walk through the streets in the French Quarter and see live shows, like quality music.
Oh yeah. I saw this lady. You may have seen her. She played the clarinet. She's like looks like a homeless lady playing the clarinet. And you look at her up and she's like a famous doctor that's old. She's just on the street, just playing.
That was one of my first branding projects. It was like 12 years ago. We made a little band and we recorded an EP in the streets with a little mic, and we made a logo, we made a SoundCloud, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. I have really fond memories of New Orleans. What a beautiful place.
Oh, it's great. It's great. I just had Eric V. Stack said, word to all this. I appreciate you guys.
Oh, my boy. Yeah, I was on the call with him earlier today.
No way.
Yeah.
We kind of launched our journey to just start creating at about the exact same moment. And we
Oh,
could
cool.
stayed in touch ever since. And you saw in the early days how he would literally just sit in a sauna and just start talking. And I would text him, do not edit anything. Don't change anything. Just keep going.
Yeah.
I love edited rants. And so I'd have him on the show several times just to rant. I'd be like,
Yeah, he's really good at those.
yeah.
Well, hey, Craig, thank you for having me on. My wife has a call and I got to take the kids.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Where can we find more of your stuff? And then I'll send you this video to share.
Yeah, great. Well, Jordan Urbs on Twitter. My website's linked in there. You can check out more of my work, my newsletter. I write a lot about life and stuff. Sovereigntystudios.com shows you what we're working on in El Salvador. We have the Build in El Salvador newsletter there in case you're interested in keeping up to speed with El Salvador. You can check out our retreat, our first retreats on September 5th. It's 4 days. If you've ever been wondering about El Salvador, if it's the place for you, this is an opportunity to come condense like what took us 6 months of exploring and networking into 4 days. We're gonna have a big soiree. Max and Stacy are gonna be there. Eric Stacks might be there. That's why we had a call earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sovereigntystudios.com has all that. So
fantastic. Well, I'll definitely look into it and try to get y'all as much airtime as possible. Let's do this again. Maybe get a couple other content creators on here. Maybe have a panel of content creators.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'm all about people becoming content creators. I think it's super important going in the future. So however I can participate, sure.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Jordan. Keep up the great work, man. Hope to see you one day.
Likewise, Craig. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Yep. Yeah. Bye. All right. So that was Jordan. He is doing a great job living in the paradise that is El Salvador, kind of the epicenter of Bitcoin, of our Bitcoin community. He is a content creator, obviously, for a long time now, and has been living the life as far as just getting out there, pressing start, and letting the magic happen. For any of you considering creating content out there, I encourage you just to start and set the bar as low as possible. If you think of you're climbing small steps versus putting this massive step in front of you, sometimes if you create too high of a barrier to entry, you just never move, or you overanalyze things, or you try to, prepare to the nth degree. I would say, look, just start. It's going to be a little bumpy for the first maybe 10, 50, 100 videos. But once you get 50 or 100 videos or posts under your belt, well, now you've gotten so many iterations. You've gotten feedback from your audience. You've really started to really stretch your legs in the market and get market feedback. And so one thing I've learned is that you create content, you put it out in the audience, and then you ask for feedback, and you get what's called a tight feedback loop. And then you iterate. So put it out, market feedback, iterate. And then you just keep working on version 2 and version 3 and version 4. And you'd be surprised that the distance between version 1 and version 2, by the time you go from 2 to 3, the time shortens. And each iteration gets shorter and shorter and shorter before improvement. Before you know it, it's just constant improvement, little 1% here or there. As long as you're open to feedback and you actually ask for it and crave it, good feedback from your audience is like gold. So ask for it. That being said, I actually, in my little ticker scroll on the bottom of the screen here, if there's anything y'all think I need to do for the show to improve, I don't care if it's sound, I don't care if there's a way you'd like to, maybe people you would like me to interview, any and all suggestions I read, I take seriously. And some of my greatest content additions or tweaks came from the audience. Matter of fact, most of them. I would say everything that I've got so far is just my audience saying, hey, your sound's a little off. Have you considered this mic? Have you considered this little tool? Have you considered StreamYard is another one that was recommended to me. So anything like that, and you only learn that by putting yourself out there, producing content. And then I 100% agree with Jordan on if you can make authentic content that is more about who you are, the values you have, and maybe something you're super passionate about and interested in. I'm like, there are few masters out there. So if you love something so much that you've chosen to be a master of it, and that's what you want to share about, and you're just being real about your journey, that's sticky. It's very sticky, and you're going to create a good audience around that. So if this is something that interests you, reach out to Jordan, take a trip to El Salvador. He can show you how to create some content. Give him a like and a follow. Also, I see that Julie Mullard said authenticity with a smiley face, exclamation point. Eric, great seeing you in Nashville. Can't wait to hang out again. One day I'm going to make it out to California, hopefully see you. If not, man, if you're ever in New Orleans. Matter of fact, if anybody in my audience is ever in New Orleans, please hit me up in the DM. Let's hang out. I'll show you all around the city. I love showing off our city. So definitely look me up. We can meet in person, go grab a beer or something. So this is Craig LeBlanc, the founder of LTP TV, Load Time Preference Creators. Is something new I'm working on. So appreciate all the love and support I'm getting from everyone. Those of you out there that are heavy into Bitcoin, keep stacking sats. We had a great sale the other day, went down to 50,000. Hopefully y'all were able to smash by at that low point, but keep DCAing in, and don't forget to take your Bitcoin into cold storage and self-custody. But love you guys. Again, I'm signing off. This is Craig LeBlanc, the Doorman, your host. Thanks. Bye.